So it's time. And I got thinking about it, and I thought, Shannon, over the last year, every time you've done a list of 30, which is now going to be a list of 31, you've gone in alphabetical order. So for fans of the Ducks, I feel your pain right now, but I'm not starting with the Ducks. I'm going to start with the Canucks. I'm going to start with the Canucks because, A, they're my favorite team. And it's my channel. And it gives me an excuse to wear this jersey, which some people love and some people hate. I get it. And before anybody asks, no, I do not want to see the Orca moved out and Johnny Canuck put in. I don't want the Vancouver Lumberjacks. I think just no. But the Canucks are a fascinating tale going into this season because this roster is built for one thing. Yes, right, the number one draft pick. And everybody's talking about tank, why don't they tank? I'm going to go through this roster and show you why I believe they are. And also why I think there's a lot of names getting thrown around out there, and not everybody can make the team. So there's going to be a lot of these guys that are going to get cut. And I don't know that any of them get picked up on waivers. So there's more than 4 lines, there's more than 3 sets of defensemen, and there's more than 2 goalies because I watch every Canucks game. And I pay really close attention. So I will not be able to do this for every preview. There's no way. I will try to do as in-depth a preview for every team as possible so that every single fan base feels like they've been serviced by this channel. But for the Canucks, it's going to be an interesting upcoming season. So here's, and this is probably going to be the first line, is Berchi, Horvat, and Besser. Besser, I figure you can get, at best, I think they get 25 goals out of Besser. At best, I think they can get 30 goals out of Horvat. And before anybody laughs at me, I think Berchi's good for 15. So that's 70 goals out of that first line. That's pretty good, right? The problem comes in with the second line. And Henrik, I think, is like 8 goals. Daniel, at this point, I think 17 would be a good total for him. And Granlund, if he ends up on their wing, and I think he has good chemistry with them, I think Granlund gets probably 20. So that's a pretty anemic second line. Now, I got Eriksson on the wrong wing, and I know that because I got Gagne up here in the third line. Maybe he, just switch him with Eriksson. It doesn't really matter. You got Sutter in the middle. This is the weirdest line. I can't see Eriksson being up here. Maybe to start the year they put Eriksson with the Sedins again. Maybe they try that again. And it was a disaster last year. Maybe they try it again this coming season. But Gagne is a more offensive player than Sutter. Gagne also is a center, like Sutter. They've tried Sutter on the wing before. I could see Sutter being moved onto that second line. Granlund dropped down here. Eriksson goes here. Gagne goes in the middle, and Granlund's on that left wing. Sound good so far? Yeah, it's a mishmash, right? This is the problem. And I can hear people screaming around, what about Goldobin? Yeah, he didn't look ready for the NHL when he came over. Every time they showed him, I was like, is he 15? He's a kid. He's not ready. And in the games I watched that he played live, he's not strong on the puck. Put it that way. And I watched them against 2 relatively big teams in Boston and Vancouver, Boston and LA. And Goldobin, he's competitive kid, but he's slight. And opposing teams will take advantage of that. So Goldobin on this fourth line doesn't work. But Goldobin sitting up in the press box doesn't work either. Goldobin, I can't see playing ahead of Granlund. He doesn't play ahead of Besser. He doesn't play ahead of Berchi. He doesn't play ahead of Daniel. So where does Goldobin go into this lineup? It was a good pickup. Yannick Hansen wasn't sticking around, so it was a good pickup. And Hansen doesn't fit into this lineup either. Burmistrov, I don't mind him as fourth line. I think him and Gotts are going to fight it out. And Chaput is still in the mix. Of course, I would fear Chaput being on the wing for the Sedins, but Willie Desjardins not the coach, and I'm hoping Travis Green thinks things over a little more than that. Magna's still here. Boucher's still here. Molina. Somebody's got to clear waivers out of this bunch in the bottom 12. Bottom 9. So top 9, bottom 9. So you've got this line right here. And I think that's your top 9 forwards probably. If anybody can tell me who Goldobin pushes out of those top 9, and don't say the Sedins, because that exposes a bias. And again, this is a team that I think competes for worst in the league this year. But at least it could be entertaining. But this is the problem. Goldobin, where does he fit? Virtanen. Everybody's excited about Virtanen still in Vancouver. Well, not everybody. There are a number of Canuck fans who still believe, yes, Jake will turn it around. Where? Where does Jake go into this lineup? Does he go on the fourth line and Goldobin ends up sitting in the press box? Does Goldobin go to the minors? Did you send Goldobin to Utica for a year? He already thinks he's ready. Goldobin absolutely thinks he's ready. Chaput, where does he fit in? Magna. And I know, Canuck fans are like, send him to the minors. Right. Fine. So they're in the minors. What about Reed Boucher? What about Dorsett? Dorsett's been sitting around. He's been injured quite a bit. What if Dorsett's healthy and good to go? Where does Dorsett fit in? Fourth line? Okay, so you're okay with sitting Boucher and sending him up to the press box so you can have Dorsett in the lineup. One of the benefits of the Canucks being at the bottom of the league is you're not going to have these really heated games. Like, teams go out and they go out to punish Crosby, so Pittsburgh has to go out and they have to beef themselves up. Pittsburgh has to do everything they can to protect Crosby, and now they've got Reeves. They re-signed Sestito. They're ready for whatever happens. The Canucks don't have a player you're going to key on. Are they keying on Horvat? Not really. I mean, 30 goals, that's at most. I can't see Horvat being any higher. And Besser at 25, that's at most as well. They're both good players, and you know, someday maybe these two are part of a bona fide first line. I don't see it with Berchi. And I know I take a lot of flack from Canuck fans when I say it. I don't see Berchi as a top 6 guy. I think he's very popular with his teammates. I think he's probably a great guy. I just think that when the Canucks turn the corner, Berchi's nowhere to be found. Neither are the Sedins. This is likely their last year. Daniel will score his 1,000th point this season, and they'll ride off into the sunset. And then a guy like Goldobin, maybe Virtanen, can move up. But in all likelihood, Pettersson and Dahlin will move into those spots. At the very least, the Canucks want that to happen. They didn't draft Pettersson, who has chemistry with Dahlin, without looking ahead to that and salivating just a little bit. And if that works out, then that makes Benning a genius. I never thought I'd see the day I said that. So there's your top 9. And let's just say for fourth line, so Burmistrov probably goes in ahead of Gauntz. Dorsett probably gets that fourth line. And because the Canucks want him to succeed, Virtanen gets on there too. Now you got Goldobin, Gauntz, Molino, Chaput, Boucher, and Magna all out of the lineup. Boucher probably gets waived and gets picked up by somebody else. Boucher's going to pass through the league. Every team's going to think they can turn him around. Because Boucher has the offensive capability of turning it around. He has the tools. It's just a matter of putting it together at the NHL level and getting the right opportunity. I could see Vegas grabbing him immediately. Because Vegas needs goals. On defense, you got Edler, Tanev, Hutton, Stetcher, Delzato, Goodbranson. I like the top 6. I honestly think that's a good top 6. Notice Weirkoch not in the top 6. So when people said, I picked up Weirkoch, he's terrible. It doesn't matter. He's a number 7. Or a number 8 if Biega's still lounging around. And don't forget, Biega played forward a lot last year too, so maybe one of these guys I got to start next to, maybe they don't make it either. Maybe Biega's up front. With Travis Green, it's a totally different coach. It could turn out totally different. But is it Biega's turn to play forward again? What about Home? They signed this Home guy, Philip Home. We don't know. Is he this year's Philip Larson? Or could he be a steal? Could he be one of those diamonds in the rough? The Canucks, and I think another important thing to show here is with Del Zotto signed as a free agent, and he's bottom two, that effectively cushions the blow of losing Trampkin. If Trampkin's coming back, Del Zotto doesn't get signed by Vancouver. This was done because of Trampkin leaving. And Goodbranson, if he's healthy, then I think the Canucks have the physicality on the blue line they need. Because this top four of Edler, Tanev, Hutton, and Stetcher, that's soft. It's soft. Tanev is fantastic defensively. Edler, Hutton, Stetcher, nice guys. Hutton and Stetcher genuinely, I think, are solid defensemen, but they're soft players. So, what that leaves then is it leaves Weirkoch, it leaves Holm, it leaves Biega, and Padan. And there's a lot of Andre Padan supporters out there who say they like Padan's game and they think Andre Padan's going to be a solid NHLer, and I'm going to be wrong. And I want to be wrong. I absolutely want to be 100% wrong. I want Padan to come in and be that physical defenseman as the number 7 guy we need, and I want it to happen this year. But I don't think it's an accident that Sbiza is the one that got picked up by Vegas and Padan's still here. If Padan had that potential, he would have been a more attractive option for Vegas than Sbiza. McEnany, Jordan Subban. McEnany was kind of an emergency call up towards the end of the year. I don't see NHL defenseman there. He was overwhelmed in the game I watched of his on TV. He was just not ready. And I don't think Jordan Subban plays a game. The only thing benefiting Jordan Subban from here is that Travis Green knows him. Travis Green has helped and done his best to turn Jordan Subban into an NHL prospect, not a project. And if somebody gets hurt, and if it's an offensive guy that gets hurt, like a Stetcher, Del Zotto, or Edler, Subban could be the first one to get the call. Because which other defenseman down here passes the puck like that? Holm? I think Subban gets the call. I think this coming season, if anybody gets the call, it'll be Subban. But I'm not projecting it, but he could. But it has to be a puck-moving defenseman that gets hurt. And he would have to play with Goodbranson. Subban's a little guy. He's fast. He's good with the puck. Goodbranson can just play back and play the defensive side. And it could be great. It could be a fantastic thing that happens, and it could make the Canucks defense look smart. In net, there's going to be a problem. Markstrom, I don't see him as a starting goaltender in the NHL. And starting this year, he's getting paid like a marginal starting goaltender. Then they brought in Anders Nilsson. Nilsson and Markstrom, I think, are probably going to split starts, but I think the way it's going to happen is I think Markstrom's going to start a line share at the start of the year. By the end of the year, I think Nilsson's going to be the better goaltender. I think Nilsson was very good in Buffalo last season, and I think he's an underrated goaltender, and I think by the end of the year, Vancouver may have a bit of a controversy. Mild, this is not like a Luongo-Schneider controversy. Neither of these guys is Luongo or Corey Schneider, but there may be a bit of a controversy if Markstrom's sitting on the pine and making over $3 million a year. And then Demko I've got up here just in case one of them gets moved. Thatcher Demko, I believe, is worth every penny the Canucks are spending on getting him ready. His development is absolutely key for this team. Because if you look at the future of the Canucks, you look at guys who I think will be with this team when this rebuild is over. So let me get a different color out. If we're looking at guys who I think are going to be Canucks when the rebuild is over, we're looking at Horvat. Get him signed, Mr. Benning. Get him signed now. Besser. Potentially Granlund up front. Those three forwards, I think the potential is there for Goldobin, Virtanen, if Virtanen can develop. And that's the big if. And then on the blue line, I think Stetcher has that potential. Hutton has that potential. Tanev will be gone by then. And I don't think Goodbranson and Del Zotto stick around the long term either. And then in net, it's Demko. So the pieces that the Canucks need to be careful with are those pieces. And then, of course, people are going to ask, what about Ulevy? So I'll put him on the board. Ulevy may get 9 games. He may get a tryout. Ulevy may get a shot at the roster. But which of these top 6 defensemen does Ulevy take out? I think the Canucks have already decided that Ulevy will start the season outside the NHL. And then I could see at the deadline, Del Zotto gets moved as a rental. Ulevy comes up and plays in that spot. They're not rushing any of their prospects. And they've got good prospects. I mean, you've got Pettersson, who's going to be a couple years still. And Ulf's kid, Jonathan Dahlin. And I think those are good forwards. It is not a tremendous pool the Canucks have, but it's finally passable. They finally have a passable prospect pool. So where am I projecting the Canucks to finish? In their division? I'm projecting them to finish 7th. And for the record, I had Vaughn pick out teams that make the playoffs and didn't. I didn't ever pick the seeds, but her picks for who made the playoffs and didn't. We both agree that the Canucks will not make the playoffs. And she'd love to see the Canucks make the playoffs, but we both agree this is not the year. So, let me know what you guys think. And don't forget the downvote is off to the right. There are going to be fans who are upset with my statements on certain parts of this team. I think this team is going to be entertaining. I think they'll be in games. I think what we saw at the end of the year where the Canucks were just awful and they just went on losing streak. I don't think that happens with this team, but they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to score. They're going to struggle to keep pucks out of their net. And I think their special teams could be rough. Because the Sedins are not what they used to be. Eriksson didn't have any kind of a click with the special teams either. I don't know that Horvat's a guy that you build a power play around either. I love Horvat, but I don't know you can build a power play around him. Which leaves Besser, who's a rookie. Berchi, who's I don't know what you got. Gagne's good on the power play. Who's passing to him and who's he passing to? So there you go. And on the point, there's none of these top 6 are a really good power play point man. So I think their power play is going to be a mess. Their penalty kill should be solid. Killing penalties for this team, they should be relatively solid. And with this lineup, they shouldn't be shorthanded a lot. There's not a lot of guys in here that get penalty minutes. So they may be one of the least penalized teams in the league. People are going to say softest. Fine, they're going to be one of the softest teams in the league. But there's going to be some entertainment value. Let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. And isn't that a surprise? I started with the Canucks. And who knows where I'll go next. But I'm going to make this as fun and as random as possible so that you guys don't know what's coming up next. And you have to tune in every day. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.